Hello Internet, Taliesin here, and today we are talking Shadowlands patch 9.1. We are talking Sylvanas, we are talking Tyrande, and we are talking Elune, because today we are looking at the cinematic climax of the Battle for Ardenweald scenario, which sees two of WoW's super heavyweights come toe to toe, and usual disclaimer, this is not a reaction video. Of course, I have watched this cinematic a whole ton of times already, so if you haven't already seen it, this video will be a really bad way to do so, because we're going to be stopping and starting and skipping bits and going back over bits, really rummaging deeper than a Korthia Anima Inspector to get to the bottom of all the meaningful little tidbits housed within, as we discuss an absolute banger of a cinematic, which isn't just beautifully put together and enjoyable in its own right, but which also, by the way, just so happens to be chock full of really interesting implications for existing lore, and also raises some incredibly interesting questions, which actually will be answered very soon. So join us as we embark upon our deep dive cinematic analysis for the Battle for Ardenweald, or BFA. Cinematic, we're going to need a better name, and ask, what is Elune's plan? Where is Nathanos? What is Sylvanas' realization? And Tyrande? What? Okay, go. And our very first shot is of Sylvanas straining to open this portal, like really giving it some, and I know what you're thinking, and frankly, I think it's a bit disgusting of you, but fine, I'm just going to go ahead and say it and get it out of the way, and we can all have a good giggle and get on with analysing a really great cinematic. But yeah, taken out of context of the pretty exciting action leading up to this moment, there is no denying that portals to the moor don't look completely unlike hairy bumholes. Like, it may not have been the first thing I ever thought of, but if someone says to me, hey Taliesin, do more portals look completely unlike hairy bumholes? I have to admit I'd be lying if I denied it. And look, there's no rule or law reason why more portals have to look this way, you know? I just think what with the Legionful demon bumhole crest and now this, then clearly there is someone at Blizz who knows what they like, and we are seeing that reflected in their work. And that's awesome, and now we never need to talk about it ever again. And anyway, there is context to this opening image, because of course it comes at the climax of the Battle for Ardenweald, as we fight a whole bunch of new shiny moor baddies flooding into the zone, and the whole time Lady Moonbury is like, oh man, I can sense something really big on the other side of that portal. And with every new, bigger than before baddie that comes through, everyone is like, is that the thing you were talking about? And Moonbury's like, nah, the thing I'm talking about is much bigger. So when we cut to this pre-rendered cinematic, and our first sight is of Sylvanas really opening out this gaping portal, further solidifying her own strong central connection to the moor and role in these events, then already the tension is pretty high, because whatever is about to make an appearance has already been thoroughly hyped up in the lead-in, and when it comes with everything the cinematics department can throw at it. Scary, discordant moor music. This shot where the camera is placed miles above the ground looking down on the comparatively tiny Ardenweald forces below. Hearn backing up in awe and fear as the beast clumps heavily into position. A shot from below like it's from the vantage point of some stupid tiny normal sized person. And finally, the money shot of the gigantic moor monstrosity dwarfing Sylvanas. Maybe her comparatively tiny stature here subtly suggesting how she is becoming less and less important in the jailer's plans. The camera tilting at an angle as if the sheer heft of this big boy is tipping the ground and unbalancing everything else. The choir in the soundtrack hitting the recognizable moor refrain bellowing around the trees to represent how the jailer's forces have well and truly arrived in Ardenweald. His smoky dark corruption polluting and poisoning the pristine environment around it. All of these elements woven together to help elevate what is, let's be honest, a pretty standard and familiar mob model by now to a hugely heightened sense of scale and threat. This is a Terrorgru level enemy, but it's not the Terrorgru, it's another one, so I guess we'll call him the Terror 2. And the Territu has to feel like the biggest, baddest maw-baller that would flatten anyone that even tried to take it on. It has to feel like that to justify its billing, but also because otherwise the next bit wouldn't be as flat out funny. As it lets out a terrifying "I'm going to destroy you like I just destroyed this bumhole portal" roar, only for the slice and blade into a cabbage schlunk sound that is instantly recognisable to all us media watchers as the internationally recognised "I've just been stabbed in the back" noise rings out, cutting the choir off in mid sing-song, and our Territu falls lifeless at Sylvanas' feet. And her face here in this shot is of pure Gillian Anderson middle-aged woman. I have had it with this shitness here as this huge anti-climax makes way for the main event.
Tyrande, I understand you've been looking for me.
What this cinematic is of course really about, the reveal of Tyrande Whisperwind, and it's quite an entrance, heaving her glaives out from the corpse of the Territu, which shows us just how much force must have been used to put them in there in the first place, a reminder of her new supplemented strength, and then rising to her feet with the camera positioned below her to show how powerful and in control she is of this situation. As off screen, another character, Sylvanas, literally says her name to introduce her.
Tyrande.
But it's worth noting why Tyrande is here right now. Obviously, this represents the climax of her arc. Obviously, we all know that her super objective is to get her revenge on Sylvanas, sure, but she hasn't swooped out of an Ardenweald tree to save us all from the Territu at the last moment like a comic book hero. No, she has come through that portal with the Territu, because she has been stuck in the maw, don't forget. She jumped into the maw with us at the very beginning of Shadowlands, did not escape with us or Bolvar and the Dread Knights. If you did the Ardenweald campaign, then you later went to find her in the maw and storm Torghast together, but she stayed there looking for Sylvanas and has been there ever since. This isn't just her arriving to save the day and confront Sylvanas, it is her using Sylvanas' own portal to escape the maw, because there's no other way she can. She ain't no maw walker. Just as a side note, by the way, it is also worth noting that this is also the first time that the jailer's power has been strong enough for Sylvanas to get out of the maw since the end of BFA. They've both been stuck in there waiting for their respective moments to make their move. For these two, the extended length of 9.0 was even more painful than it was for us. And just in case we are in any doubt about what is going to happen, we get this very cool shot of Sylvanas and Tyrande on opposite extremes of the frame in an image which just encapsulates the entire situation beautifully, because this is very much supposed to be represented as Tyrande's moment of revenge and fulfillment, and of events coming full circle since the burning of the World Tree, which caused all of this. We now see Tyrande physically changed and become the embodiment of rage, standing atop the Territu, representing how hard she has fought to get to this moment. And as the two face off, it is in the shadow of another huge magical tree in Ardenweald, but one representing rejuvenation and rebirth. Even the fact that it's a forest makes it seem weirdly appropriate for Tyrande, and like it's her home turf. Sylvanas looking small and exposed at a lower level physically, but not flinching or giving an inch. This is a classic face-off. There's about to be a massive rumble, and the cinematic is doing everything it can to suggest that Tyrande has the edge. But even then, and with Sylvanas clearly on the back foot, it's quite impressive how she rolls with the punches here. Contrasting with Tyrande's stoic and unshakable purpose, very quickly falls back into her studied, measured, slightly mocking tone. Such a great line. I believe Robert Brooks wrote it, and as my granddad would say, that line is top bloody shelf mate. Although ironically, the words "is mine" is when Tyranda's voice takes on an incredibly reverby, almost kind of like possessed tone. She's not actually speaking purely in her own voice here. And that, combined with the emergence of Tyranda's new glowy Elune tattoos. Tattoos? I mean, I say tattoos, and they kind of are, but to me it feels more like Tyrande is so full of Elune's power right now. It's like quite literally busting cracks in her and bursting through. And those cracks just happen to be in really nice shapes, but you know, making her really strong as it does, so whatever. And then we get to the fight. And I always say that modern in-game WoW cinematics generally fall into two types. You have your character pieces, like the majority of the Jaina ones in BFA, or Illidan and Velen in 7.3, and you have the action set pieces, which are a little more old school in a way. Traditionally, WoW cinematics would be reserved for moments of high action, and this is definitely one of those moments. Although it says a lot for the kind of heights that these cinematics reach now, that actually this one is a really good character piece as well, as we shall see. But the fight itself is obviously awesome, and like all good fights in cinema, a story is being told through the choreography. And here that story is told through the relentlessness in the way Tyrande attacks. Just as her pursuit of Sylvanas has been single-minded and obsessive, once her prey is in front of her, she continues in that mindset, blow after blow raining down on the Banshee. And Sylvanas is completely on the back foot. Every move in this choreography is a Tyrande attack with her glaive and a Sylvanas dodge or parry. She makes no attacking forays herself because she can't. The borrowed strength of the jailer that Sylvanas wields cannot compete with the borrowed power of Elune that Tyrande fights with. Elune is bis in 9.1, nerf Elune. Of course, there's another reason why Sylvanas might be happy to play on the defensive here, as we will find out. But the juggernaut quality of Tyrande's fighting style is represented in this cinematic by basically using the Demon Hunter moveset. These cinematics tend to use in-game assets as their base, and one of my favorite things is to spot the assets that they use. And if you play a Demon Hunter, you will recognize plenty of these animations, and that absolutely makes sense. She's fighting with glaives after all. Tyrande and Illidan would likely have been taught by the same bunch of teachers when they were growing up, or at least teachers teaching the same style. And this is a total sidetrack, I know, but it makes me think of that class skins idea that we had back in BFA, how different races could have reskins of their spell graphics and icons to fit a new fantasy, like Dark Ranger skin for Blood Elf Hunters, or a Necromancer skin for Demonology Warlocks, or a Spellbreaker skin for Blood Elf Prot Paladins. How about a Night Warrior class skin for Night Elf Demon Hunters? So instead of being Fel infused, they are rocking out with Elune. It would be awesome, make it happen. Obviously first you'd have to make class skins happen, so yeah, make them happen, then make Night Elf, Night Warrior, Demon Hunters happen, okay, good. And Tyrande kicks Sylvanas' ass here, knocks her all over the arena. Even Sylvie's cool chains that held the Lich King without any trouble at all are shrugged off like crepe paper. And we've said this before, but I have to say it again, Sylvanas' facial animations in the Shadowlands cinematics have been unsurpassed. Like, they are basically the best thing I've ever seen.
Night Warrior. I expected more.
They capture this disdainful smirk so well, it's outrageous. Even when she's losing, she gives this air of being in control. Except for right now, when Tyrande says,
I will take your head, Banshee, just like I took his. Nathanos, you didn't know. Your master is keeping secrets from you.
And it's here that we finally see the mask slip. The confident veneer disappears just for a second as we realize that Sylvanas doesn't know about Nathanos. And this is really important because Nathanos is Sylvanas' boy. He is the only other person on Azeroth who actually knew that Sylvanas was in league with the jailer throughout BFA. When Tyrande killed him, he made reference to going straight back to to Sylvanas. He expected her to know when he arrived in the Shadowlands. You can tell from Sylvanas' reaction that she expected to know when he arrived in the Shadowlands, and as Tyrande correctly identifies, that momentary look of vulnerability doesn't just betray Sylvanas' concern for Nathanos, but her realization that the jailer, or your master as Tyrande puts it, has lied to her. Which raises the question, where is Nathanos? The implication is that the jailer would know and either kept it from his supposed aid number 1 9-carat gold champion, or just didn't bother to tell her. Add this to the mounting evidence now starting to become apparent to Sylvanas as well as us, that Sylvanas is quickly becoming less and less important to the jailer. And as we and Sylvanas saw from Zoval's attitude towards the capture of Denathrius, once an ally has served their purpose in his plan, he doesn't exactly have their back anymore. Tyrande's smile when she realizes this is delicious. She's not just about to get her physical revenge here, she's struck an emotional blow to her enemy too, and that victory is almost as important. And then comes the real turning point.
Trick. No!
As the alert sounds from the heart of the forest to let the Winter Queen's forces know that they are under attack, and the Wild Hunt falls back because it turns out that all of this has been a distraction to divert attention away from the main prize. And if you think about it, then this really hammers home the point about Sylvanas becoming less important, because what is she in this plan? She's the distraction, the bait, the decoy, the lackey to keep everyone else busy while the jailer's new favourite, Baddie Anduin, does the proper important work of taking the Queen's sigil. And as it dawns on Tyrande what's happening, I love this shot of Sylvanas just yeeting off in the background behind her. Her part in this plan is done, but also she is running for her life. Tyrande has clearly got this fight won at this point, and this might be the most important part of the cinematic when you look back at it. The moment that informs everything that happens next, perhaps, because Tyrande makes a choice. She can either return to the heart of the forest and possibly save the sigil from being stolen, or she can abandon the Wild Hunt and chase after Sylvanas. And Tyrande chooses option number 2.
Elune, it is time. Inqua Melema.
Channeling all of the Night Warrior's power that she can, and you know this is a big moment because Night Song starts playing in the soundtrack, and Night Song only plays when shit gets real. She missile strikes Sylvanas out of the air, and they meteorite down to Earth together, anime style, with the smoke clearing to reveal Sylvanas at Tyrande's mercy.
At last.
And yeah, I know everyone laughs because Tyrande is apparently trying to choke an undead banshee who doesn't breathe, but we've seen from other cinematics that Forsaken are absolutely killed by snapping their necks. Or maybe Tyrande is full on trying to pop Sylvanas' head off like a grape. She probably could, were it not for the fact that her strength is already fading.
And yet, the knight's power wanes. Once again, she denies you victory.
Something that Sylvanas feels straight away. And it turns out that Blizzard actually did nerf Elune in 9.1, and that's the problem with all these borrowed power systems, you know? The next patch comes along, and suddenly you find you're not as meta as you thought. She probably needed to swap Covenant or upgrade her Legendary or something, you know? And as Sylvanas begins to overpower Tyrande back, Tyrande's cry, her appeal to Elune, is not born of any desire for self-preservation, but out of exasperation that Sylvanas will survive at the end of this.
Mother Moon, do not forsake me. End this.
And make no mistake, if Ysera doesn't arrive on the scene at this moment, then this is the death of Tyrande Whisperwind. Sylvanas would tear her apart. But instead, we get this nice symmetry where Tyrande couldn't save Ysera in Legion. Here, the dragon is able to rescue her and force Sylvanas' retreat. But of course, being Sylvanas, she has time for one last villainous quip.
Bask in the dying embers of your goddess's bargain, Tyrande. Nothing lasts.
Oh, that dying embers poke and the way it subtly brings to mind the fate of the smouldering Teldrassil like a dagger between the ribs.
Tyrande, can you hear me? Tyrande?
Sylvanas has survived. The Jailer's plan has worked. All of the blood, sweat and obsession that Tyrande has put into tracking her down for the last 2 years has ultimately come to nothing, and now Elune has forsaken the Night Warrior. All in all, it's a pretty big L for Tyrande, who looks tiny, broken and frail under the protection of Ysera's massive wing, despondent and lost, unable even to acknowledge one of her absolute besties who she thought was dead, coming to her aid. But on the face of it, Tyrande has gone from having victory literally within her grasp to losing everything all over again. And I guess the real question has to be, why did Elune forsake and retract her power at the exact moment that Tyrande needed it the most? Well, we are going to speculate on that right now, but I think it's worth saying it looks like we are going to find out very soon in a chapter of the Covenant campaign that tackles this very question, and which apparently is answered, at least to some degree, in another cinematic, which of course no one has seen yet. So this doesn't look like it's going to be one of those threads that gets left and unaddressed for a long period of time, you will be pleased to know. But for now, why did Elune GTFO? Is it because Tyrande whispered "my life for hers" before she flew off after Sylvanas, apparently being willing to die to finally end Sylvanas once and for all, and Elune was like, no, Tyrande, I want you alive? Maybe, but then in practice, Tyrande didn't need to sacrifice herself to kill Sylvanas. She was about to do it just fine, no harm done to herself, when she lost her power. And anyway, leaving her powerless and one-on-one with a jailer buffed Sylvanas probably wouldn't be the most obvious way of keeping Tyrande alive, you know? Is it because Elune didn't want Tyrande to succumb to her lust for revenge? Because, you know, if WoW has taught us anything, it's that lust for revenge is bad. Maybe, although Elune doesn't seem to have minded so much about that for the other Night Warriors. When we talk to them, Elune appears to have been absolutely fine with them doing really terribly awful things with her power. Could it be because Elune knows everything and knows we need Sylvanas alive to go all Kerrigan? Not bad any more superhero to save us from the Jailer's plan, Sylvanas. Or is Elune working with Sylvanas? I hope not. Is it because Tyrande chose her own selfish desires over the greater good by not going back to help protect the sigil? I feel like we may be getting a bit warmer here. Or what if Elune rescinded her power from Tyrande simply because her job was done? Think about what Tyrande has done since taking up the power of the Night Warrior. She's taken back Darkshore and Darnassus for the Night Elves. She's freed the souls of the Night Elves who died at Teldrassil from their prison in the Moor and sent them to be all chill in Ardenweald. And just now she rescued us and probably most of the Wild Hunt, the defenders of Ardenweald, and therefore the souls of the Night Elves who died at Teldrassil, from the Terratu. Basically, the wrongs that were committed against the Night Elves by Sylvanas and by extension the Jailer have now been righted as much as they really could be. Getting revenge against the Banshee Queen might feel good for Tyrande. Well, don't forget kids, revenge is bad, okay? But it wouldn't actually help her or the Night Elves as much as Tyrande being a central part of the future of her people would be. Whatever that may be. Unluckily for Tyrande, it does probably involve Malfurion, her husband and soulmate, who she hasn't once mentioned or thought of throughout this entire ordeal. And so, with the events of the Battle for Ardenweald played out, where are we exactly? We have the mystery surrounding Elune apparently forsaking Tyrande. We have Tyrande being broken and probably harbouring some pretty major abandonment issues. We have Sylvanas becoming ever more aware that her importance to the Jailer is waning and starting to realise that he might not always be completely honest with her. And we have Nathanos somewhere. The Jailer probably knows, but probably not anyone else. Basically, it's kind of all to play for as we get ready for the raid ending cinematic this week, which will obviously bring some kind of resolution to Sylvanas' current arc, however temporary, and if we're lucky, maybe give us a hint at where we might be heading for 9.2 as well. But what do you think about this opening action-packed cinematic to get Chains of Domination rolling? Is it an instant WoW classic? Or if not, Where does it rate on the charts? What impact do you think Tyrande's revelation had on Sylvanas? And why did Elune skedaddle on out of there? I would genuinely love to hear your theories on this and maybe steal them, so let us know in the comments below. And thank you for joining us today. If you like this video, don't thank us, thank our patrons who give their actual real-life money to make all of our work happen. And seriously guys, thank you, because without you, there would be a whole lot less Taliesin Evitel. If you didn't like it, downvote the shit out of it. Remember, my name is Robert Brooks. No, my name is Taliesin, from me and Evitel and Anirin too. Until next time, cheerio!